Hi everyone, my name's Mandy and I am starting my first blog, which is today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am 55. I have two beautiful children. I'm soon to be a nanny for the first time, which I'm so happy about. I have lost a loved one to cancer, so this is the reason behind my blog. I have been told on previous times that I've been able to help people, so I thought that I would reach out and just try and give a little bit of understanding and a little bit of what I went through when I lost my loved one. So it was about, well, I have lost Andy 3 years ago, but prior to that it was 6 years. When he first found the cancer, he was just not feeling very well and he was losing weight. So we decided to go and get him checked out. There was a lot of things that they said at first, but then when he did have a scan, it came up that he had a tumor. His tumor was 2.5 kilos. So it was quite a big one. It was in his large and small intestine. So when they found it, they were very happy about it because they said that he was quite fit and they would be able to get all of it out. So it was pretty quick once they found the cancer, the tumor. It was pretty quick. Andrew went in and had scans. He then had x-rays and then he was straight in having the tumor out, and he was supposed to spend 10 days in hospital, but he spent 8 because he recovered so well. They did took some lymph nodes from him. They took 45. One come back a bit iffy, but they weren't too concerned about it, but they got all the cancer. So they said to Andrew that he could have cautionary chemo, what they call it, because just to make sure they got it all. So he started a little bit of that. It made him so unwell that they thought, oh, well, you don't need it. So for 2 years, Andrew was, we thought, cancer-free. He was putting weight on. He was doing really lots of stuff back into his fitness because he was always fitness, back into work. And then 2 years after, he started getting some pain down the lower near his bowel, and the cancer had come back. So they said to him that he needed to have chemo, and that so they tried all these different chemos. They told us that chemo is like when you're on blood pressure tablets or when you're a diabetic. They have to tweak the treatment to see what comes up first. So they did that, and then it would have been probably about 6 months that Andy was starting this chemo, that everything was fine. The cancer hadn't shrunk, but it was dormant, so it hadn't moved. So we were very happy, I suppose, about that. But how I can help some people, as a person going through it, obviously Andrew had his fears and his anxiety about having cancer and going through the treatment. But when you're a loved one, it is so much different. Like, I remember every time they'd say, well, there's a scan coming up, I would just be full on anxious the whole time until the scan come back, until they said, well, everything's fine. Andrew was having chemo every 2 weeks. So that meant we were at the hospital every 2 weeks for him to get his chemo. At first, Andrew was just happy to go in and see his professor, and then I'd be waiting out in the waiting room for him to come out. And I remember just being so white as a ghost. I'd be in and out of the toilet because I would be so anxious, and it was just dreadful. But I put on this brave face because you have to for your loved one. And then we'd go in and we'd have the chemo, and then we'd go home, and the same thing on repeat every 2 weeks. And they do give you a little bit of reprieve. They say, okay, everything's going well, you can have a month off, which they normally do around Christmas. The anxiety and the stress that you feel every time you have to go into that hospital, even though you're thinking that the chemo is going to make your loved one better, but it's a poison killing a poison. So it's just so stressful. And I just remember just trying to keep calm. I was trying to always put on a brave face for Andrew, because he didn't want to see his wife getting all mental and, you know, like crying all the time and things like that. So it's really hard, and you have to be kind to yourself and understand if your loved one is going through chemo and you're feeling hopeless and you're feeling like you can't do anything. I'm telling you now, that is just normal feelings. There's nothing wrong with you feeling like that, because that is just normal. That's how everyone feels. But everyone's journey is different. As a family, we were very, very always positive right up until the day that Andy went into the coma. Myself and my daughter and Andrew were getting ready to go to Bunnings because he wanted to get some things, and he was still okay, and then he slipped into a coma. My daughter, she was very, very great on how she handled everything. She was very strong. She was extremely a great support for me. And my son Jack, he was great, but he was a little bit younger, so he dealt with it a lot different. So all of the three of us were dealing with it in our own way, and that's okay. That is really okay. When Andy passed away, the first year, and it is so true, I have heard about this when I went to counselling sessions, when I went to a group counselling session. There is a thing called the widow fog or the widow brain, and it's so true. That first year, I didn't even know. I was one day shopping, and I didn't even know I was there. It was just a blur. The whole year was just a blur. And it's always the first, like you've got the first birthday without him, the first Christmases, the first wedding anniversaries, and so on. But for me personally, the second year was the hardest, because then reality hits, because you know that your loved one is not coming back. And that's what was really hard for me. I remember telling someone one day that how I describe my grief is when Andy first passed away, it was like a dark, dark forest. And then as days and weeks got on, I felt a little bit of this light coming through, creeping through. And the more I went through the forest, the more I could see the light. And then just one day, I saw all this light, and I felt at ease. Grief is never going to go away. I'm always, always going to grieve for Andrew, my loved one. He was my husband. He was my soulmate. We were married for 26 years, together for 30 years, and he was my person. So grief is never going to go away, but it does become a little bit easier. But it is like a roller coaster. It's up and down all the time. There could be a song that plays and you instantly think of your loved one and you start crying. Or there could be a smell or something that reminds you of what they were going through. It was so hard for me that I decided last year in November to leave Brisbane, where Andrew and I had been for 18 years. My kids had been born there, they'd grown up there, but I just could not move on. I could not have that grieving or that finding peace. So I decided to move back out to my hometown in Goondiwindi, out in the country, and I did that. It's the best decision that I've made. There's been so many memories here of Andrew and I, because this is where we first met, out here, and we started going out here and dating, and and we've got all our beautiful family and friends out here. So it's been the best decision, and I've been so lucky that my children have come out here with me, because that's been a great strength of mine, and it's a great comfort to have your family. My life is not normal anymore. When Andy passed away, my life changed, and it's never normal. But I feel like at some days, the sad days are getting a little bit lesser, and the better days are getting a lot more. So there's always that to think about when you're dealing with something like this. And also, don't feel like you have to be like everyone else. I've heard so many people talk about, oh, this person, has lost her husband or her uncle or her father or whoever it might be. And the next day they took their clothes out, or they removed everything from the house, or a wife has got another partner after 6 months, or so on. You know what? It is their journey, and if that makes them feel better, well, so be it. And no one can judge anyone unless you are in their shoes. I had a lady that said to me one time when I was asked to do a bit of a talk about how I'm coping. And she said it was 6 months and she still hadn't been to the cemetery to see her husband. I said, that's fine. That's okay. Why do you think that's a problem? You have to do what you need to do. And if you cannot go to the cemetery, well, then you don't go to the cemetery. There's so many other things that you can do to help you get through this. You just have to be very kind to yourself. If I can give any advice, is this: be kind and just do what's right for you, not what you think is right for everyone else. And even though you have a lovely family and friends support, at the end of the day, and I actually learned this when I was going to group therapy, we were all sitting around and everyone tries to be nice, but they say to you, are you okay? But they're only saying that because they feel like they need to say that. And you don't really need to. It's like when you're with someone that's lost someone, you actually, like we feel like that we can say, I'm not fine. I'm not okay. I'm actually struggling. And those people that know that has lost someone absolutely gets it and understands it. Sometimes when you lose someone, you feel like you don't want to say exactly how you're feeling because you don't want to be that person, oh, she's like that today, or oh God, she's not feeling the best, or oh, I better not come around. I have actually lost friends since Andy's passed away, believe it or not, that just don't know how to talk to me anymore. And that is so sad, but that is not a me problem. That is their problem. And I had to deal with that. But I've also gained new friends, and I've reached out and reconnected with a lot of friends that I've lost connection with over the years. So it's just one of those things. And I really hope today what I've said, or if you can just take a little bit out of this, well, I'm glad to help, because this is all I'm doing it for. I just feel like it's nice to have someone to come out and that's been through it can talk to you about it. So I'll be doing my blogs every Thursday about different things and how I coped with different things when I'd lost Andrew, and how the kids had coped through different things. But today was just a little bit about just me and about Andrew and about what we've been going through and where we're at now. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.